In this video, I'm going to put together a whole bunch of my thoughts on risk and how people understand risk and think about it, so that therefore, I'm going to upload it to AI so that it can list it all out. All right. With risk, people oftentimes believe that individuals have a business and do nothing, right? The business owner, I don't see them, they don't do anything. What do they do day to day? And maybe their day-to-day actions are not that great. But what they are not understanding is that business owner spent their resources to get it going. And in addition to that, also took on risk of loss of additional resources, the liability of payroll, of a lease of a space, of inventory, of investment. All of that risk is what the effort or the work is, or the trade-off that person put in to get the reward. It is all trade-offs. The employee oftentimes trades their time for an hourly income. The more qualified or experienced or effective employee, or better self-managed employee, does that on a salary. If someone is not good at doing that, if they haven't learned the skills to do that, then they're not going to be salary perhaps, then they'll be hourly. And there's no risk there besides their time. The employee can cut ties tomorrow and lose out on nothing. The owner has much more risk if things were to not work. Then also the risk of ensuring that employees are there, right? If a owner loses all their employees tomorrow, they have the responsibility of replacing the front line people, the management, whatever position needs to be filled, or risk losing the whole business. The individual employee or team member doesn't have that risk. Even the general manager or upper management, they have that risk to a portion, but they don't have 100% of that risk, because again, at the end of the day, they can just leave. But people oftentimes, they get angry, they get cynical, they get critical of people because they don't understand and evaluate risk properly, because risk is not something you can see, or it's hard to see. It's not like seeing someone sitting at a desk or a post. And that goes back to the whole issue where people think that time is what you're paid for, because even someone that's paid on the clock oftentimes is not paid simply as even as I say the analogy of a security guard. A security guard is not just paid to sit there. Yes, they end up sitting there most of the time, but they're also paid to perform a responsibility, which is to watch and to react to any situation that comes up and handle it in a certain fashion. If they just sit there and that is it, even when something happens, now they are not performing their duties. So there really are no jobs that you are paid truly by the hour. You are paid by the work. The hour is how the work is measured, along with certain outcomes or activities. But that's very different than just paid purely for the time. But see, people will say, oh, I put in my time. I was there from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Therefore, I'm worth it. Well, again, you're not just paid to exist from this time to this time, even if your job is as menial as sitting at a post as a security guard. Because again, you have certain responsibilities and actions that are required of you. If you just sat there and fell asleep or did nothing, you would not get paid anything. You would get let go eventually. It's interesting because people, it goes back to the Dunning-Kruger effect, where people think that because they don't know much about something, like for instance owning a business and the risk that goes into that, and the risk that goes when you scale a business. I built a business that we opened up locations in 3 different states. So I got to experience a little bit of that pain and growth, and a lot of the pain of racking up liabilities and everything else. And that's something right now that I choose to not do. Moving forward with business endeavors, my absolute goal and outcome is to operate in a fashion where I'm going to limit, if not drastically minimize, any liability I put myself under, because I was too open to doing that. And that takes a certain risk tolerance that I'm not willing to put into it. And that's okay. That's totally fine. There's people that go through their entire life and never put that risk. Now, everything is risk and everything is investment, because you can also risk your time. You put time into a position as an employee, you're of course risking time and effort for possibly no reward, because they could fire you tomorrow or the company could go under tomorrow. So everything has risk, but the difference is the amount. Because the worst case scenario as an employee, you go to 0, which means you get fired from the position and you go on to something else. The worst case scenario as a business owner, let's say, or entrepreneur, is not only do you go to 0, but we're probably going to go past 0, meaning go into debt because of the liabilities that were required to operate. So I believe more people need to understand, going back to the Dunning-Kruger effect, how these are different things and how little they actually know about an area, an idea, a concept, an industry, a line of work. Because just according to the Dunning-Kruger effect, the person that thinks they know the most is the person that actually knows the least. So therefore, if you think you know, unless you have actually personally gone through the experience of, let's say, putting that risk out there to have a business and things like that, don't criticize the business owners or the critique of people in the financial industry where, oh, they're just trading, they have no function, right? But then it comes into question, well, do they have a function? Could you make a strong argument, or what would be your strongest argument for what their function would be? Because if there is no function there, then probably, not that they won't be there for a little bit, but probably over the long term, that position, that pretend function does disappear unless it's supported by some type of absolute corruption or something like that. Now, you could make the argument perhaps that, well, people aren't paid appropriately per their contribution to society. But then you have to understand that you are judging things off of your value assessment as opposed to what the market decides is valuable. And what is the market? The market is made up of what? Not some evil monster. It's made up of people. And not some, to steelman the anti-business argument, some evil CEOs or corporations. That's part of the market. But at the end of the day, who do they sell to? They sell to somebody. And at the end of the day, at some point, it does trickle down to the individual citizen of an economy. And they're responsible. If you don't like what corporations are doing, most corporations, you can actually abstain. Now, the argument would be with abstaining from them is that, well, that's going to cause undue suffering and stress on my end, right? But then that supports the concept that that corporation or company or CEO actually adds value to your life, right? You bitch and complain that they're evil, they do no good, they should be gone, and then you use their products and services. And again, to steelman their argument, you use their products and services because that's all that's available. Well, is that true? No. Most of these things are things that you don't have to use. Now, granted, you could say something like a specific medication, like when I had a chronic illness, there was a specific medication that I needed to take that you could only get from one company. Okay, I understand that, and I will grant you that. But with most other things, whether it's the car, the place you live, the area you live, the work you do, the food you eat, all of those things, what stores you shop at, you can all determine to do it in a different fashion. And if the majority of us decided to do that, those places would be out of business. But the reason why you don't do it is because they provide a fair value trade-off, or rather, what you spend for those products and services, you get a greater value for than what it would take to do it another way. And I believe that's through market effectiveness and through quality, consistency, convenience. So these are important things to, I believe, think about more consistently when we start complaining or feeling cynical or negative about our world.